When you look back through the great figures of history, there are very few names that inspire both awe and, frankly, a little bit of fear, quite like Mehmed II. He was known in Europe as the Grand Turco, and he was a man just full of these powerful, fascinating contradictions, a ruler who truly stood between two worlds.
Think about this for a second. On one hand, you've got this absolute military force of nature, the conqueror who brought down walls that had stood for 1,000 years. And on the other hand, you have Avni, the poet, writing these incredibly sensitive, delicate verses. How can that be the same guy? That's the puzzle of his life. The sword and the pen, both held in the very same hand.
And get this, at just 21 years old, the sheer scope of his talent was staggering. We're not just talking about some prince who knew how to lead an army. No, this was a true polymath. He could design cannons that would change warfare forever, he could read Homer in the original Greek, and he had this unbelievable ambition to become the next Caesar of Rome.
So that's the big question, isn't it? How does a person with such a deep intellectual and artistic side also become this relentless military commander who literally redrew the map of the world? To even begin to answer that, well, we have to go back. We have to look at his childhood. His early years were, well, they were anything but easy. He was given the absolute best education money could buy, but he also suffered a failure, a humiliation so public and so deep that it would become the fuel for his ambition for the rest of his life.
So his father, Sultan Murad II, he pulled out all the stops. He made sure Mehmed was taught by the greatest scholars of the age, men like Molla Ghorani and Akshemseddin. But what's really interesting is that his education wasn't just limited to Eastern learning. He had Italian humanists at his court, and he dove headfirst into Western art and science.
I mean, the man's capacity for learning was just off the charts. He was fluent in 6, count 'em, 6 languages. We're talking Arabic, Persian, Greek, Latin, Serbian, and Italian. And this wasn't just some party trick. It was a powerful strategic tool. It let him understand his friends and, more importantly, his enemies on their own terms.
But all that knowledge couldn't save him from the harsh realities of politics. When he was just 12 years old, his father abdicated and put him on the throne. And it was a complete catastrophe. He was facing down a crusader army, dealing with chaos at home, and in the end, he was forced to step down and beg his father to take back control. Can you even imagine how badly that must have stung?
That public humiliation, that's what forged him. It took this incredibly gifted kid and turned him into a cold, calculating strategist. So when he finally took the throne for the second time in 1451, he wasn't just a sultan. He was a man with a massive chip on his shoulder and one obsessive goal in mind. And that one obsessive goal all came down to a single city, Constantinople. For more than 1,000 years, it had been the capital of the Byzantine Empire, the last remnants of Rome in the East. Taking it wasn't just about strategy or trade routes. It was a symbol. It was the queen of cities, and Mehmed was absolutely determined to be the one who finally claimed her.
And the way he went about it was just pure methodical genius. First, he built a massive fortress, Rumeli Hisari, to cut the city off from any help by sea. Then, using his own engineering skills, he commissioned the biggest cannons the world had ever seen, literal monsters of bronze that could smash those legendary ancient walls into nothing but dust.
Okay, but even with these super cannons, there was this one huge, seemingly impossible problem. The city's main harbor, the Golden Horn, was blocked by a gigantic iron chain stretched across the water. No ship could get in. It seemed like an unbeatable defense. Checkmate. But Mehmed's thinking was on a whole other level. He did something so audacious, it sounds like it's from a fantasy novel. He ordered his men to build a road out of greased logs, and then they physically dragged his entire fleet of warships up a hill, over land, and down into the enemy's harbor, completely bypassing the chain. It was just an act of pure, unbelievable genius.
So after a grueling 53-day siege, on May 29, 1453, the unthinkable happened. The city fell. And this wasn't just another conquest. This was a moment that shattered the world order. For many historians, this is it, the real final end of the Middle Ages. But you see, taking the city was just the start for Mehmed. Once the dust from the siege finally settled, a totally different side of the man came out. The warrior king became the patron of the arts, and the conqueror showed the world his Renaissance soul.
He wrote poetry using the pen name Avni, which actually means the helper,
And this wasn't just a hobby, this was a deep part of who he was, a part that was searching for beauty and meaning, even in the middle of all the chaos of building an empire.
His taste in art knew no borders. In a really incredible move, he reached out to the Venetian Republic, his rivals, and invited one of their greatest Renaissance painters, Gentile Bellini, to Istanbul just to paint his portrait. That painting became iconic, a literal bridge between the Islamic East and the Christian West. His court became a magnet for the brightest minds of the time. He brought in astronomers and mathematicians like Ali Kushchu. And his personal library? Wow, it was legendary. It had everything from Ptolemy's ancient maps to Homer's epic poems. It just shows you this was a mind that was curious about absolutely everything.
So, when you boil it all down, his legacy isn't just about war and conquest. It's about synthesis. It's about bringing things together. His grand vision was to create a new kind of universal empire, with his new capital at its heart, an empire that would take the best from both Eastern and Western traditions.
But let's be clear, the military man never went away. After Constantinople, he just kept going. He locked down the Balkans, he took Crimea, and essentially turned the entire Black Sea into an Ottoman lake. And then, he turned his gaze to Italy itself, capturing the city of Otranto and sending a wave of pure terror across Europe.
And this right here brings us back to his ultimate goal. He didn't just call himself a sultan. He took on the title Kaiser-i-Rum, which means Caesar of Rome. You see, in his mind, he wasn't the man who destroyed the Roman Empire. He was the one who was inheriting it, continuing it, just under a new banner.
He died exactly as he lived, on the move. In 1481, he was marching his army out for another campaign. Many think he was heading for Italy again, to try and take Rome itself, when he suddenly fell ill and died. That relentless drive for both conquest and for knowledge, it literally never stopped until his very last breath.
So what do we make of him? Was he the destroyer of a 1,000-year empire, or the creator of a vibrant new one? A ruthless conqueror, or a brilliant Renaissance man? The story of Mehmet II seems to tell us that maybe, just maybe, history isn't that simple. Maybe we don't have to choose. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history, don't forget to like and subscribe to Scholarly and Storytelling for more videos where history meets narrative. See you in the next chapter.